What's up, manga heads? It's me, Dark Fox 8, and I'm here with ARG, and we're gonna talk about another manga series that we talked a lot about on the podcast, but we're talking about it now with Amber, who this is her first time experiencing Shuzo Oshimi, so it's pretty exciting to expose her to the terrible, awkward, uncomfortableness of Shuzo Oshimi. But today's kind of a special episode because it's been a while since we recorded.
A year.
It's not been a while since I've uploaded a video of these because I've held on to some of our prior work for a whole year, and I finally put up the Go with the
Clouds.
Go with the Clouds, yeah. Go with the Clouds, North by Northwest, yeah. I finally put that up, and this is a peek behind the curtains, but we actually recorded one about our today's topic, which is Blood on the Tracks. We affectionately refer to as Murder Mommy. So if you hear me slip and say Murder Mommy, I'm just referring to the manga. Okay.
Spoilers on murder.
Yes. There's a lot of twisty things in this manga. So like even to saying Murder Mommy is like actually it's like So like it's a very interesting manga. But before we get into it, I wanted to just preamble a couple things. First of all, to Amber's left, just in the frame of the camera, you see a box. I bought Amber a gift online. She doesn't know what it is. And the reason why it's even here is just it's going to kind of segue at the end of the video. We're going to open it up and it's kind of be a preview for either our next video or one of our next videos. What do you think it is? You don't know what it is?
I don't know what it is. What's in the box?
Yeah, you have no idea?
No, it's too heavy.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be heavier. I'll say that.
Okay, that's concerning.
Yeah, it's anime manga stuff.
Is it gonna break if I like shake it vigorously?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, not break. I mean, not shake it vigorously. if you throw it against the floor, it might break.
I won't throw it. Can I just like
shake it?
It's too boxy. I don't know.
Too boxy. Yeah. I assume there's multiple boxes in there. I'll say that.
Okay.
Hopefully the price isn't printed on there.
We got the Matryoshka of boxes here.
What?
The Russian nesting dolls.
You just totally blew my mind.
Take two.
So no, we're not staying in. So that's to be continued, or stay tuned to the end of the video, or use the timestamps and jump to it to see what that is. We're gonna get into this manga. If you don't know who Shuzo Oshimi is, he's a pretty famous like seinen author. He has some pretty big seinen series that they're usually pretty horror adjacent. They're very uncomfortable books. A lot of times about like boys growing up and dealing with puberty, or dealing with women, jokingly but also not jokingly because it's true. Like Shuzo Oshimi writes terrifying women, or he writes books about women who are terrifying, or boy characters who are terrified of women for whatever reason. It's one of the criticisms the author gets because there's just seemingly something about this author and women.
He's got a type and it's scary women.
Yes. And some, I don't know the full details, but some of that actually is partly about his upbringing, but because apparently his mother was abusive. So this isn't an autobiographical book, but he's clearly drawing some experiences from his own life to deal with this. I know that sounds terrifying.
It does. It took a really dark turn.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. But like, it's fair to say Shuzo Oshimi has some hang-ups with women. At least that's what comes through from his books. But really, one of the reasons why I love Shuzo Oshimi so much is his art. His art is pretty realistic and really detailed and really natural. We're gonna get into it a lot later on, but like this book does not focus a lot on dialogue. It's more about the expressions that characters are making, what they're looking at, what they're not looking at.
The intense glances, the shadowing.
Yes, there's a lot of like natural shadowings. Like right now you see the shadow casted on our left side of the face, and there's a soft shadow on our right side of the face. Sometimes in manga that's not drawn. But that is very much drawn in Shuzo Oshimi's books. There's a very good, gentle shading he does, and sometimes it's really ominous when somebody's standing in front of the sunlight or a light, and their face is shrouded in different shades of darkness, and it's just like a a vagueness, a dread that he builds with this natural shading of bounce lighting that happens in real life that he tries to replicate in the manga drawing. 'Cause not a lot of manga do that. That's one of the things I really, really like about the art of this book. It's just like the natural bounce lighting of how the light comes into a room and bounces off the floor and the roof, and everything kind of gets lit kind of dimly. It looks really, really interesting in this manga. Where a lot of times environmental manga are drawn like they're a unity level where it's just like brightly lit. It's like this god lighting. Not in this book. There's dark corners and shady moods. But I mentioned early on. Sorry, you want to say them?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you already drew the parallel to how like his other series relate to like children going through or boys going through puberty and like scary women. Are there other parallels that aren't too spoilery that you could say in terms of his other series like Happiness and the Flowers of Evil that you've talked about before to me?
Flowers of Evil is very much about young people disenfranchised with the world and disliking basically the fakeness in adults and the fakeness in adult life, and you have to go do this job you don't want to do to get money and stuff that dedicate your life to stuff that you don't want to do, and that kind of like feverish and madness that happens in Flowers of Evil with these young children does also happen in this book, just very differently, but it's not very parallel. This I feel like all of his stories they kind of deal with very similar things. But this one focuses on my opinion, which is the most interesting thing, which it's less about young people complaining about society, like, oh, society sucks.
It does.
It does, yeah. But this is more about abuse. And I think this kind of rolls into our content warning. I mentioned he had an abusive upbringing. This book is basically about abuse. That's basically the quickest way you could sum it up. It's about like a mother abusing a child. And it goes places, different stuff happens. The book is kind of evolving from that, but strong content warning up front. There is children in peril. There is children getting hurt. There is children being threatened. There is violence.
Trauma, manipulation, gaslighting.
A lot of gaslighting, a lot of...
borderline incest.
Yes, a lot of sexual content, or at the very least... borderline sexual content with children. So strong content warning for that stuff.
Also,
yes,
dead animals and falling off cliffs.
Yes.
Important.
Yes, for falling off cliffs is a big deal. And also yes.
If I knew about the dead animal content warning, I might not have read this series.
Okay. Dead animals, specifically dead cats, is the recurring motif, and in the start, it almost represents the boy's repressed memories about a looming dread that he has about his mom. So I guess I just explained how the book really opens up. In fact, I'll just open the page. We're obviously not going to show the whole manga.
And while this does kind of start, like the very beginning is kind of super tame, this is very much a psychological horror series and does take off by the end of the first volume.
Yeah, so the book of the beginning of the series starts with the main character named Seiichi. He has a dream where he remembers finding a dead cat with his mom, and very quick you get kind of weird vibes for the mom, because the mom gets very happy and it's like, wow, you remember that? You were so young. And she kind of claps his face and kind of brings her face really close to him as she's like happy, talk to him about like, wow, you remembered a memory from when you're such a little baby. And Seiichi's instantly kind of embarrassed because he's getting praised by his mom, but also his mom is just like very much kissing distance. And it's instantly like what is going on with this mom?
And also, why are you happy that he remembers a dead cat?
Yes, yeah. She ignores the whole dead cat aspect, which is like the first.
Wow, you remember when you were a child?
Yeah,
great.
It's just like the first clue is that maybe she might have like some sociopath tendencies of she might not care about certain things, or she might not have emotional connection to certain things. And then from there, the first volume you just mentioned, it's really slow. It's just kind of like introducing you to the characters.
and setting up the catalyst event that carries throughout the series. And it might be important before we dive too much further in to kind of outline like the 5 main characters throughout the series too.
Yes.
So first we have like the Osabe family. So as Darfox just said, Seiichi, which is the main character, he's the son in the family, and his mother Seiko. And then there's also the father Ichiro, which he's kind of like optimistic to a fault throughout the series, or just he thinks the best of everyone. I feel. Yeah,
there's also a dark aspect with him in the sense that he might be a neglectful husband.
Oh, absolutely. And father.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of dark stuff happening between the mother and the son, and he's just oblivious to it the whole time,
and just looking the other way, even when like he's confronted with things.
Yes.
And then the other 2 main characters is Shigeru, which is his cousin that we will get into more about. Mm-hmm. And then Fukishi, which is a girl in Seiko's Seiichi's class that he likes a lot.
Yeah, Fukishi, Fukishi actually might be one of my bigger criticisms of the series because she starts off as like a very neutral character, and then she gets very much involved in the plot, and then she kind of gets pulled out, and sometimes she's not around for a large part of it. So it kind of just feels like the author brings her around occasionally for like extra trauma, basically.
And then comes back in strong in like the later volumes too.
Yes. But
she's dropped and picked up where they need plot movement.
Kind of, yes. Yeah. And also maybe more scary women.
Yes.
Yes.
Because one wasn't enough.
Yes.
The aunt. I don't know if they gave the aunt a name. I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But the aunt or the mother of Shigeru, she's also a pretty scary woman. So there's a lot of scary women in this series.
Yeah. The tough thing about this series is, especially early on, you don't know what to think about the mother, and sometimes you actually sympathize with the mother. Sometimes, so some of the tension in the series is because the cousin, Shigeru, he's kind of a shitter. He's kind of like a mean family member who teases Seiichi, and he kind of bullies him a little bit. And Seiichi's kind of like a sensitive, soft kid, so he's kind of goes along with it, right? He kind of goes along with it, and
he doesn't have friends. Like like his cousin is like his friend. Like he doesn't really have many. And
so it's one of those things where like they keep coming over and hanging out because they're family, but Seiichi might not want to. He actually might want to hang out with school friends or try and spend time with Fukishi. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Fukishi. But Shigeru keeps coming over, so he kind of has to spend time with Shigeru. So the mother kind of is perceptive enough to pick up on this stuff, and she's also overprotective enough on this stuff.
A bit.
Yes. So the mother and the son, the main characters, they're kind of on the same team as far as like they kind of feel that Shigeru and his mother are a burden, and they're kind of bossy, and they kind of monopolize the family's time, even if the family doesn't want to spend time with them. So there's very relatable stuff about like inter-family dynamics and stuff like that, and stuff that you do get the sense that when the mother married the father, she kind of became beholden to the father's side of the family.
Yeah.
She had to deal with the extended family and just kind of like kowtow to what they wanted, kind of thing. So early on, before the plot really starts progressing anywhere, you do kind of feel some camaraderie with the mother, even though she's clearly kind of ominous and kind of scary sometimes.
And something is just very much off.
Yeah, there's something off on her. But when you look objectively at the facts, you're kind of on her side. At least I will admit, I'm kind of on her side sometimes early on when you're looking just at the facts of the events, before shit gets really weird.
I don't know if I was ever on her side. She was just terrifying right out the gate to me. A little inhumane throughout.
Yes, no, she is. But that's one of the interesting things about Shuzo Oshimi is that, like we talked about how he clearly has some hang-ups with women and stuff like that. However, like I don't know if it's just his storytelling is good enough, he's smart enough, but there is a little bit of what looks like it might be a sympathetic storyline in there. None of it really goes anywhere because women in this series are very scary. But there's almost enough there to fool you in the beginning. But that is to say that the series is very textured. There's a lot of rich character dynamics happening. And that's kind of all the series has. It has like a handful of really big plot bombs of stuff that happens. And then the rest of it is just the characters kind of being in the same room, talking a little bit, but mostly just like looking around and processing what's this all going to mean for themselves. Yeah. Anything else you want to mention before we jump into the spoilers?
I think it's just, I don't know if I mentioned this before, so I'll reiterate just in case. But today we're just going to be talking about volumes 1 through 12. Volume 13 comes out May 2nd of this year, 2023. So we aren't caught up with the Japanese chapters that are out. I believe they're up to volume 14, so a couple ahead of us.
Yeah.
But it's still an ongoing series, still continues to be murderous and terrifying, I'm sure. But I'm interested to see where it goes, despite my reservations and uncomfort with the series. But I think this is a series that's meant to make you uncomfortable. You're not supposed to just be happy reading this. It's a horrible thing to happen, or continues to happen throughout the series, and it's something that isn't supposed to sit with you, right? You need to be uncomfortable reading it, and it's important that you're stepping out of your comfort zone to understand the trauma and this kind of storyline that's going on.
Well said. I think at a certain point I got Stockholm Syndrome and I just started enjoying it. At some point,
so you are enjoying it. Oh my God.
At some point now, and I will explain when it happens.
Okay.
I just started having fun with the terrible uncomfortableness, and it made me laugh out loud.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think I did laugh at one point where I was just like, "This is so ridiculous! Like, what is even going on anymore? I don't understand."
But that was pretty late for me in the game. I think my brain finally broke when that happened. Yeah, as well said by ARG. It is not a feel good book, but it is I feel a rewarding read and very, very interesting, especially if you're into the whole the craft of comic making, because the panel layout and the panel setup and the way the dread builds and rolls and then the reveals and stuff, it's all just like very technically sound, very well done stuff. As far as just the technical art, the dude has nothing to worry about. As far as women go, he's hiding underneath the bed. He's like, oh no, they're coming.
Women are scary. We are.
Terrifying. All right, so on the screen you will see a time code for the video when we finally get through this very dense forest of spoilers. There's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. But we will kind of wrap it up and give our spoiler-free final recommendations and also, of course, the unboxing. So follow the time scale on screen, and we are going to spoilers.
Our spoiler zone.
Yep, we're at Manga Heads. We're in the top secret spoiler zone now, and we could talk about all the terrible shit that happens in this series.
There's a lot of it.
Chief among them, at the end of the first volume, the family goes on a hiking trip.
And this hiking trip is the catalyst for the rest of the series. Everything that happens goes back to what happened on that camping trip.
Yes. And the long and the short of it, Seiichi's hanging around with his cousin Shigeru, and Shigeru's still being a shitter, including doing stuff like he kind of like fake pushes Shigeru over a cliff. And this is a great example of moments that make me sync up with Murder Mommy.
You're like, oh, it's okay, he's a little shit. So.
Yeah. Well, so like he fake pushes Shigeru, make him flinch over a cliff, and obviously that's really scary for Shigeru. It's not really an uncool thing to do, and For Seiichi, yeah. And Seiichi's mom, the titular murder mommy, goes over and, protects him. And everybody starts laughing, like, ha ha ha, you're so overprotective. And I'm reading it like, bitch, like, do not fake push me while I'm near a cliff.
Yeah, cliffs are terrifying.
So it's like, you really just get the sense that the family just kind of like assholes. And then Seiichi and Shigeru go off on their own
towards another cliff.
Towards a way bigger cliff.
Yeah.
And you're going to get familiar with this cliff because the iconography of the cliff becomes very familiar with the series. It's a repeating image. And Shigeru was at the edge of the cliff, and he's like, "Hey, Seiichi, come over to the edge. Look at this view.
See this view. It's so pretty." And it's like, "Oh, I'm not falling for that again."
Yes, Seiichi's like, "No, you're just gonna push me, and I don't want it." And then Shigeru's like, "Don't be a coward." And he's like dancing at the edge. Yeah, he starts dancing at the edge of the cliff, and sure enough, Seiichi's mom shows up, the murder mommy. And she's like instantly like, get away from the edge of the cliff. That's dangerous.
Like acting like a super nice aunt.
Yes.
Like, come back, Shigeru. That's so dangerous.
She's playing the role.
Yeah.
She's playing her role well. And then
it'd be a shame if anything happened to you out there.
Yes. Shigeru actually stumbles, and Murder Mommy boats and actually saves him from stumbling and falling over. And she grabs him
right by the shirt.
Yeah. And there's this moment where they're kind of frozen. Shigeru's like, "Whoa, I almost just died," and he's like,
"You saved me."
Yeah, and before he could really process that and kind of thank his aunt. Yeah, his aunt. He kind of pauses when he sees her face. He's like, "Why do you have that face?"
She's like grinning as big as she can.
Yeah. Well, they don't show you initially. I think it was mysterious. Oh, she does grin when she looks at Seiichi, the main character. Yeah, but we don't see the face that she makes
when she turns back to Shigeru.
Yeah. So actually, maybe that was to be interpreted as she was grinning, or gently smiling like a beautiful mommy. So she pushes Shigeru off the cliff, seemingly kills him. There's going to be a lot of twists with that later on, but it's interesting when she pushes him off the cliff because she has like a quick, like she instantly turns on the waterworks and she starts screaming.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No!
And she starts screaming to
everybody come quick!
Yeah, Seiichi like go get help, go get help. And then
brilliant acting.
Yes. They find the body, they take him to the hospital, and then like the mountain cops or whoever they are come and ask them like, what's going on? Yeah, they end up like regular cops, so I'm calling them mountain cops. They're like, what happened? And because Seiichi was there, they ask him, and it's this really great scene. Again, we're going to go into talking about like the shading and the shadowing where they're in the hospital hallway, and it's during the day, I guess, so the lights aren't on. So there's only the bounce lighting from the outside coming in, and they're like kind of in the middle of a hallway. So there's a lot of darkness and shading. And they ask the mom, and the mom says what happened, and then they ask Seiichi, is that what happened? And there's that moment where like the mom is kind of non-committal. She doesn't know if the kid's gonna lie for her.
But she's giving him that like glance, like you better not throw me under the bus because we're family. And
then he lies for her, and she smiles, and that was like the first corruption of Seiichi. Yeah. Of actually lying and covering for his mom.
First in the series corruption, or the like at the beginning of the series, the first that you know of.
Yes. So we know now that the mom has murderous tendency, and we suspect that she also killed the cat. And I kind of just feel like jumping to the very end of the reveals that happened. What's learned way later, like in volume 10 or 11, I'm not sure where. That same day when they found the cat, she actually tried to kill Seiichi when he was a toddler, maybe 3 years old.
Yeah, like 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
She just picks him up and then throws him down a hill.
Yeah.
It's like, It's fine.
And it wasn't
Didn't
like
want a child anyways.
It wasn't a cliff, but it would kill a toddler. It would kill like a little baby. And then
very small drops would kill a baby.
Yeah. So she goes and finds him, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't die? Well, I guess we'll just go back home." Very weird psychopathy.
Yeah.
And on the way home, that's when they see the cat. And that's kind of like the strange connection that he has with the cat, and it's kind of like it's basically like the disposable life of his and the unwanted life of his, and kind of like it's a recurring metaphor between him and the dead, like roadkill, and him kind of being roadkill. And he sees it again when eventually later on when Shigeru finally does die, he sees a white cat in the snow. But the series takes a lot of twist, and the first big kind of like gross twist, in my opinion, is Fukishi and Seiichi's relationship. It starts to blossom, and she gives him like a confession note, right? The mom barges in, finds a confession note, and she's like so disgusted and wrecked.
So distraught.
Yeah, she's distraught over
how dare some other woman, girl, like
this
her precious son.
Yeah, this vixen. And
it's gonna take him away.
And she makes him tear up the letter, or maybe she does it in front of him. And one of the best moments in art, in my opinion, is there's a lot of panels of the letter being torn, and then his face reacting to the letter being torn, and then eventually like his face starts getting torn along with the letters, and it really feels like that's when she kind of just tears him apart and kind of takes almost all his agency away. Like, you just do this, and I'm telling you what to do, and that leads to a kind of an arc in the series where he kind of becomes a little bit mute. He starts to stutter, and it's really difficult for him to speak. And he starts getting teased about it in school. It really starts to snowball, just like the bad shit that starts happening to him. Everything
is like going in sync, like between the lying and manipulation from the beginning of like, yeah, she caught him and he like lost his balance and fell again or whatever. And then like being so upset about not being able to be with Fukishi like right away. All of that just snowballed into him to becoming like this stuttering mess, unable to communicate his thoughts, his feelings, his trauma. Like everything was just becoming more and more repressed within him.
And to Fukishi's like credit, she's like the only character in the book who's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, who's doing this to you? Is your mother doing this to you?" She's like the only character who figures out that like
the one good thing that we can really say about Fukishi is that she picked up and realized that there's something wrong, and he was able to pull some of that out of him.
Let's segue talk about Fukishi, because if you read like the first few volumes, you're on Fukishi's side. She's like one of your favorite characters probably. The turn that happens with her is that you learn she has a really fucked up home life. You learn that she has a really bad relationship with her father, and basically
and that her mother abandoned them.
Yeah, but basically she's kind of using Seiichi as a tool for her to escape her problem, right? And she's putting a lot of pressure on Seiichi, and she probably doesn't feel that way. She probably feels like it's a mutual thing, but her pressure for Seiichi and her to run away together crosses over into one, romance, but also just like a lot of intimacy really fast. She basically tries to fuck him. Yeah. And they're like in middle school or something.
There's definitely like some sexual violation going on in the early parts of the book with Fukishi and like in those scenes. And it is a sexual awakening for Seiichi, but not in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and that's where it's kind of like, is it problematic? Is it not problematic? You're portraying this young girl who's getting abused at home as kind of like a predator. Like it's not a flattering portrayal of this young girl, especially when we've seen her be very emotionally perceptive. You might be able to argue that this character should have known that it wasn't right for her to basically try and fuck Seiichi, because Seiichi's going through so much shit and he's really hung up about his mom, and her trying to fuck him is basically just like it causes like a rift in the relationship, and
because even like even Seiichi like realizes it's too much, or at least it's too much for him, and so he does like put that distance between them and goes to his mom and goes back to her and like accepts that he needs to push her away and be with his mom.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is that arc where there's multiple backs and forth with the mom where he really just wants to get away from the mom, and then
but he also wants her.
He almost always comes back to her.
Yeah,
almost always comes back to her, which is I think that's part of like the whole like gaslighting, abusive relationship, where it's not that a spouse or a parent is abusive, and then the victim gets victimized and then they leave. It's almost never that simple. It's usually a give or take. There is love in the relationship, so that's used as like a tool to gaslight people. And I think this series represents that pretty well. It's just stretched across the whole volumes. It's kind of muddy.
Yeah, and there is a very big like Oedipal complex throughout the series, like a strong relationship between Seiko and Seiichi.
Yes.
And they even make a point about like how he was named after her with the Sei part at the beginning of their names.
Oh, I skipped over the biggest thing I meant to mention. When we were talking about when she was tearing the confession letter, we didn't mention that after she tore the confession letter, she kissed him on the lips.
Oh yes, that was so messed up.
She kissed him on the lips.
Which actually I'm not okay with that at all, but there are some families.
Oh, yes.
There are some families out there that like parents do kiss their children on the lips, and like that weirds me out personally. But I understand that there are some families out there that do that.
Yeah. So it's good you mentioned that. We're not trying to demonize just the idea of kissing a family member on the lips. This was clearly a weird sexual domination.
Yes, it was a very charged scene.
Yes, she tore apart the letter of a would-be lover, and then she imposed herself on his lips as like, I am the only woman in your life, whether it be mother or lover or whatever. So it was very gross. Yeah, the series goes there. It's very disturbing. I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna change out the battery. So we talked about Fukishi, and we talked about Seiko, the mother, being too kissy with the child. We should talk about Shigeru, and Shigeru survives the fall from the cliff, and but he's really hurt, and he seems to have some sort of brain damage. So at first he doesn't wake up, and when he wakes up, he can't really finger the perp. He can't really point to the mom.
He doesn't remember, and he kind of has his own little stuttering to a bit too because of like the brain damage and everything, and he's also kind of like paralyzed to an extent, or at least like he can't walk just right.
Not yet.
Well, even later he's like stumbling and like using a crutch or something, right?
Yeah, I think he recovers to the point where he could pretty much walk on his own. Okay. I think.
I guess it was something, but anyways. Now we're fact checking again.
Yeah, he does not have a crutch.
Okay.
But he is like limping.
Stumbling a little bit,
Yeah.
A hill. The same hill that...
yes, that's the same hill that Seiichi got pushed off of.
Yes, so Shigeru, as we just said, like, he had a lot of problems after he survived his fall. And he can't remember who did what to him. And he's having some difficulties. So, from there, he kind of goes through, like, rehabilitation and a process of trying to remember. And I think there's one day, like, once he finally comes home from the hospital, that Seiichi went over to their house to try to, like, hang out with him and kind of, like, vibe check for the mom if he remembers anything.
Right.
And it's kind of just, like, this is really weird and I feel so bad for him, but that's what it is kind of situation for Seiichi.
to jump to the chase with that, eventually he does gain enough faculties to finger the perp and say Seichi's mom did it, and it leads to an interesting scene where the parents of Shigeru come over to the house to confront him about it, and
force
Seiko,
an apology.
yeah, Seiko, the mom, basically she admits to it. At that point, she was kind of over it. She was tired.
Yeah, she's like, you're right. You know, I did do it, and let's go to the cops then. If that's what this is, we don't need to drag this out at home any further. And the dad's like, what are you talking about? You didn't do this,
Yeah.
and like ignoring the whole thing. But then, like, Seiko goes to the cops after the aunt kind of, like, grabs her by her hair and tosses her around a bit.
They kind of force her to prostrate herself.
Yeah.
To bow low.
Yeah.
And say, apologize. And that's interesting because that does kind of come into play later.
Yeah.
To some plot points. That I was actually thinking at the time, like, this is a little bit, like, they shouldn't be doing that. They should be careful with this stuff. And it did come into play later.
Yes.
But yeah, the cops take her away.
Yes, and so once she actually gets to the police station and away from the aunt and the uncle, or Shigeru's parents, she like 180s her story after a bit. Like, actually, take that back. She does 180 her story, but not until something else happens.
Yes.
Which is Seiichi getting kind of arrested himself for going and doing something to Shigeru. So let's get to that before we get further with the trial of Seiko.
Yeah, I actually showed you, the page spread related to that. But basically, Shigeru shows up the dead of night. It started snowing, so Seiichi went outside to see the snow. Shigeru shows up. He's not even wearing coats or anything. He's just kind of like in his PJs. And he's like, let's go back to the cliff. Let's go back to our hiking spot, our camping spot. And Seiichi's like, what are you talking about? We
It's
can't
midnight,
go.
bro.
Yeah. It's like,
why are you at my house?
So Shigeru starts walking away into the darkness. So Seiichi feels obligated to follow him.
Like, come back. You're limping. You're clearly not in your right mind. Like, let's go home.
In retrospect, he should have just called the cops. In retrospect,
yes.
So he follows him, and in Shigeru's kind of like interesting or confused state, he ends up at the cliff where Seiichi got tossed off by his mom.
Yes. They didn't make it all the way to the original.
Yeah,
but too far.
but he's in the confused state where he's like, we're here at the cliff. We're here, yeah. So like symbolically,
he's clearly like not thinking in his right mind that night.
Yeah, symbolically, it kind of was the cliff. Because of like the bad deeds that's happened there and in the cliff. Seiichi has this interesting internal crisis where he starts to feel guilt about basically being born and being burdened on his mom, and he starts to kind of see himself as the villain a little bit, and he starts to see himself as almost like this parasite that globs onto his mom and forces his mom to do all these things that she didn't want to do. And it's very much just kind of like this
manipulation at play.
Yeah, this guilt of existing and like,
self-destructive thoughts completely.
Yeah.
And I actually, to that point, I think it's really interesting that this is one of the few points in the series where they do rely a lot more heavily on text than in other points because of that internal monologue and tearing himself down that you couldn't really get just from looking at pictures.
Yeah, I was actually kind of annoyed when some of the stuff was happening because like the mom got put away, right? So like the big antagonist of the series is gone, but like he comes up with something like, oh, there's still the mom inside of me, and I thought that was kind of corny and weird, and it makes sense as far as the abuse plot goes.
Like she's always gonna be watching him, and like she'll hear about the things he does. Yes. Like she's always there in the forefront of his mind.
Yeah, and obviously abuse stays with you, right? Yeah. It's not like when the person's out of sight and suddenly you're okay and you're no longer a victim or whatever. So in some ways it's kind of an elegant way to talk about that, but in other ways it kind of felt just like a cheap ploy to keep creating more trauma and more dangerous stakes, even though there wasn't any active danger happening.
To really just mess up Seiichi's life more than it already is.
Yes. So there's like the scary imaginary mom living inside of his brain. And just the reversal when he starts talking about the guilt, where suddenly he's drawn as a scary, imposing figure, and the mom is drawn as like a scared victim.
Oh no, Sage, he's making me push Shigeru off the cliff. Like, that's how he warps it in his own mind of what happened.
Yeah.
It makes you even like question what reality was in the original incident.
Yeah, for a second I was thinking like, is this actually what happened?
Yeah.
But I don't think so.
No. I think she is still like crazy despite how he was framing that in that moment.
So this leads to, in the climax of this trauma in his brain, he pushes Shige off the cliff that he got thrown off as a kid.
Which Shige is like, I don't know if it's in his head or actually doing it, but Shige is like begging him to do it.
Yeah, he says thanks.
He's egging him on the whole time.
He literally says thanks. At least that's what's drawn on the page.
Yeah, like he doesn't want to exist anymore. He's like, just do it. Like, I'm you. I'm Seiichi. Push me.
Yeah. So again, it's not like a really tall cliff, but it was snowing.
And he's underdressed and injured.
Yeah, so Seiichi goes back home to like go. Now Seiichi's in his own like fugue state.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, and he goes to home. He goes to bed. He wakes up in the morning. He's like, I guess that was all a dream.
Yeah, and then the cops knock on the door and they're like, "Can we talk to you for a minute?"
Yeah,
Shigeru's missing.
Have you seen him? Did you hear of him? He's like, oh, actually, he just confessed. He's like, I pushed them off the cliff. And the cop was like, fuck, take us where.
First he like doesn't think anything of it because he thinks it's a dream. But then the cops are like, can you explain to us why all your clothes are wet from snow and your boots are wet from snow? Clearly recently. And he's like, oh, that wasn't a dream. Okay.
Yeah.
Going to jail.
Important with Seiichi's like whole attitude is very like blasé. He's kind of.
It doesn't like register as insane for him at this point because there's been so much insane stuff back to back in his life since the beginning of the series that it doesn't hit for him. He's just kind of like, yeah, that was a dream. Okay, well, dream is reality. I already had my freak out in my dream, so we're gonna just accept my fate now and I'll go be in prison like mom.
So sure enough, Shigeru died because exposed to the elements. He's
buried in snow overnight.
Yeah, he's buried in snow. So the biggest twist of the series is that Murder Mommy is actually not a murderer, a repeated attempted murderer.
Yes,
but she hasn't murdered anybody. Seiichiro, the victim of the series, is the murderer of the series.
Yes,
he murdered his cousin in volume 10. So very tragic, and I think it's a good twist as far as storytelling goes, but it's kind of, again, is it a problematic portrayal of a victim to make the victim become the bad guy? And the story's not over. I'm going to skip over the big important confrontation between Mommy and Seiichiro and just go towards just a time skip at the end.
Yes, but before you get to that, so in the previous part, before we got to the spoiler zone where I said there was a moment where I just laughed because it was so ridiculous and like, how is this even happening? That was the moment of like Seiichi pushing Shigeru off the cliff and him dying. I'm like, what? Like, what did I just read?
Okay, my moment is not here yet. I'll tell you my moment. So there is a time skip where Seiichiro went to like juvie, and probably actual jail after when he came of age. I don't know if he's in
like a juvenile detention padded cell, essentially. He can't leave this room other than if he has an appointment with his lawyer, his like youth care advisor, or his parents. Like, otherwise he stays in this room. There's just like 4 walls and a slot in the door for food. Like, that's it. And a notebook to write his feelings. I'm
glad you brought up the lawyer and all that stuff, because one thing I actually really like about this section of the story is that they portray the cops and the lawyers and everybody actually like very competently and not as like weird monsters. Yeah. Because the series, it's so heightened at times. I was kind of expecting the cops to be like, you little murdering piece of shit, kid. Yeah. You're gonna fucking die in jail now.
They're very much like, did your mother hurt you?
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, she didn't. We're good. And then, but he's also like constantly like, so has my mom talked about me lately, or does she know what's going on? Like, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But anyways, so like, yeah, the cops are portrayed very competent and like actually being concerned about his welfare throughout the whole kind of detention period that he has.
It's like they understand that he's probably a victim here, but they can't really do anything about it yet.
Yeah.
And
they need more information that neither him nor Seiko are actually providing.
And they kind of ask him straight up some questions that like might save him a little bit, but he usually is just too honest about it, or he's just weird and aloof. And same deal with the lawyer. The lawyer is just like kind of very matter of fact and like saying things like, I think the father asked, "Is she going to jail?" And the lawyer was like, "I'll try my best to make that not happen," but at this point, it looks bad.
Yeah.
At that point, it looked bad. But another twist that happens is while Seiichi is in juvie,
the mother 180s her story.
Yes.
We got back to it.
Yeah, she basically says that she didn't kill Shigeru, and the fact that the aunt and the uncle, Shige's parents, came over and basically started beating them up in their own home.
She coerced her into a confession.
Yes,
it was very convenient.
It gave her a lot of ammunition, basically, to get out of jail scot-free, kind of.
And especially because, like, one of the things that actually I found really interesting in this series is that they brought Seiichi to the scene of Shigeru's crime, like where he is initially pushed off the cliff, and they're like, "Hey, here's these actors, reenact this very traumatic thing that happened to you, please." And so, like, when they did that, they couldn't find any evidence because it'd been like a while, and like, what evidence are they really going to find other than they were there?
It might have been months. It might have been like a long time.
But they weren't going to find anything other than he fell and they were there.
All they did was step around and push. It's not like there was like viscera or blood or anything like that they couldn't try and find.
So they don't have any evidence on Seiko, and she says that she's been coerced into a confession. Of course, they're going to let her go because they don't have anything to work with unless Seiichi's like, yeah, she did it. She's a murderer, and like has some kind of way to back that up there.
So the final twist that's covered in the volumes that we read, and this is the part that made me laugh out loud.
Okay.
Seiichi's trial finally comes up, or one of his trials.
That
comes
too.
Up.
Okay.
One of his trials finally comes up, where basically he has to speak to the judge and kind of give a side of the story, or I forget what the details were, but it's a big important thing for Seiichi.
Yeah, and this is the first time in like, I want to say like months of him being in detention, or at least a month, or actually it's a month or so that he's been in detention, and then the time before that his mom's been like being held, because it was like a month or so that she had to be held for like psychological evaluation or something while they were trying to drag it out to get evidence. So a couple months, and this is the first time that he sees his mom. She's chopped off all of her, or not all of her, but like her hair is like super short.
New hairdo, new mom, new
personality,
new lease on life,
new hair, new mom.
And basically the parents are present, and like you said, it's the first time Seiichi's seen his mom, so he's kind of like looking at his mom, and she looks different, and it's really weird, conflicting feelings that he must have. Because
and every day that he's been in detention, he's been asking, "When's mom gonna come? When's mom gonna come? Does she know I'm here?" Yeah. And they're just like, "Oh yeah, she'll come next time. She'll come next time," and she never does. But then they say that she's coming to this trial, and she finally does come, and it's a huge moment for Seiichi.
The judge does this thing where like, what do the parents feel about the crime that their child has committed? I don't remember if the dad got to say anything, but he probably said something very milquetoast or whatever.
Yeah, that's on point.
but basically, what the mom said was like, "I was so happy when I heard my kid was a murderer. Now I don't have to worry about having a kid. Truly, having a kid was the worst thing I did, because when I had a kid, I thought I could redeem myself by loving this kid, but clearly I should have had an abortion. But now I don't have to worry about it because he's going to go to jail forever, and I could just have my own life.
I have
finally.
my life back. I can divorce my husband that I didn't want anyways. I can just sign away my rights and like whatever." And then Seiichi's like, "I just lied for you. What?" Like freaking out. Yeah,
and it's like the exact opposite of what Seiichi had done for him throughout the whole series. Was lie for her and just be an emotional bucket for her, and just take her abuse, or take everything, her love, her abuse, whatever. and the judge, as she's going on this like very like what's the name? What's the word? Almost like euphoric rants about like her freedom because she doesn't have a kid anymore. The judge is trying to tell her to shut up. It's like, ma'am, stop talking.
Yeah.
You'll be removed. Stop talking. They finally stand up and they start grabbing her. They're like, you need to stand up and leave right now.
And
she's like, okay, bye bye.
Yeah, she's like, all right, bye. I don't want this. This is my kid anymore. And then the big like thing there is Seiichi starts stuttering again. He finally had stopped like after so long, but he started stuttering all of a sudden again.
This is Murder Mommy talking about her life is about to begin because she's not the deal. And this is an example of like really weird drawings he makes.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a murderer.
He's like, what?
You just become a Kermit the Frog. And finally, the last one I'll show is after they basically stand up and making her leave, she's just looks back at him and smiles and says bye bye.
Yeah.
And I won't show the rest of it, but basically he freaks the fuck out. Oh,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, no, he becomes a stuttering crazy person again, and he's just in a downward spiral of his life. And what the heck is going on?
Well, he tries to kill her on the spot.
Yeah.
He grabs her and
starts like choking her out.
Throws her on the floor and he starts choking her out, and she has like a smile. And she's like, oh, I think she's OIC or something like that.
Yeah.
Like something that's very, again, women are scary. Women give you that face and they, women pity me. I hate women pity me. So it's very much like the ultimate kind of pitiable situation where your mom is walking away from you and she just doesn't think you're worth it. That part, the whole 180 she had there was just so over the top and manipulative and crazy. I just couldn't help but laugh. I laughed out loud during the whole scene.
Yeah, the whole trial was just like an insane moment. But one thing I want to make sure we get back to, because I completely like spaced on it, is kind of like the part 2 of Fukishi. Mm-hmm. So while Seiko is being held in like psychological evaluation to like drag out for evidence, Seiichi like rekindles his relationship with Fukishi. And they have this moment by the river where they're just hanging out and talking. And then all of a sudden they turn these like backpacks or something into their moms by like drawing their faces. And it's just like an aggressive moment where they're punching their mom's face in the picture.
Dropping rocks on it.
Yeah, they're like bashing it. And I'm like, okay, well this is a murdery foreshadow here. But first of all, like when Seiko admitted that she killed Shigeru, like before she changed her story, Seiichi was so mad because at that point he'd been covering for her like the entire series, and for her to just kind of like throw that away, he felt so betrayed. And now all of a sudden he's like, you know what, I hate my mom too, you're right, Fukishi, let's be friends forever and run away into the sunset.
Yes.
And like that gets taken away pretty like that, like that's kind of an isolated moment towards the end of the series that just abruptly gets left and dropped, like you were saying earlier, where they just kind of drop her storylines because of what happens with Shigeru and like pushing him down the hill and killing him and everything. But I still think that that's like an important moment in the Fukishi storyline to drop in on as well.
Yeah, I just found that interesting and a little bit annoying that they didn't bring her up while he was in juvie.
Yeah.
Maybe she tried visiting him and they didn't mention it to her because maybe kids can't visit other kids.
Probably not.
Or, he never asked about her when he asked about the mom, which kind of makes sense for his old deal, his old drama. Fukishi is very much second fiddle in his brain to Seiko. But it was annoying to me.
Yeah.
And basically, there's that time skip and there's a kind of unflattering drawing of what Seiichi looks now. He kind of has like stubble. He kind of looks like it might be like a murder guy.
Yeah. Not great.
So and we have the volumes are available in Japan, so there is an idea of what's going on, but we don't have no idea if Seiichi's just gonna be the same, or if it's going to be like a weird bad guy now, like if he's just going off the deep end. One of my early thoughts about this series was if it was actually going to transition to be about Seiichi being a murderer, as if it was Psycho. Norman Bates, is it Bates in Psycho? I always forget the name of the character in Psycho, but like he has a backstory where his mom was kind of crazy and abusive, and he ends up being the psycho killer guy. And he would actually dress up as his mom. That's the spoilers in the movie Psycho, is that you think it's the mom is killing people, but it's actually the guy dressed up as his mom. He has like the nightgown and the cap or whatever. So I was kind of feeling like this was going to be something similar to that.
Well, I mean, that would kind of tie in where, like, the scenes that he was seeing in his, like, not a dream with Shige, where he's, like, torturing himself, and he's, like, placing the blame on himself instead of his mom. That kind of ties in there a bit.
Yeah. So we don't know what he's going to be like, if he's still going to be like a wet noodle. Wet noodle is what we usually refer to the main characters in Shuzo Oshimi books. On the podcast, we call them wet noodles because they're just kind of wet. They don't have a lot of character. They're very passive. Stuff happens to them and they just kind of like, oh, and cry. You know, it's not like, you know, Luffy who he would punch somebody with his gum whatever, but like we don't know if he's just gonna continue being a wet noodle, or if he's just gonna like assert himself and just be crazy murderer, or maybe he's actually trying to get his mom in jail. Maybe he has like a different kind of mission. It could just be like maybe it becomes a courtroom drama from now on, where they're just in the court.
I mean, I feel like he's in for like a lot of time in court, to be honest. But one other point to that, I guess, is like on Seiichi and his transformation, is that there's in addition to the dead cat, there's a lot of butterfly imagery throughout the series.
Yes.
And so, like, especially on volume 11 here, if Star Fox wants to lift it up because I can't reach it. Very end. So on here is an example, but throughout the series, there's a ton of butterflies. And one of the points that I know we've talked about before is just like the butterfly as a symbol of like his metamorphosis throughout the series of like being this just kind of like whatever little kid to actually being kind of a little bit crazy murder himself.
Yeah. Excuse me. There's like, and it works on multiple levels because it could be like loss of innocence, kind of like a change. You can't go back anymore. Yeah. You know, butterfly can't go back to being caterpillar or anything like that. And at least early on, it also kind of felt like it was representing the mom a little bit because it was, you know, the mom was very duplicitous. But I definitely think it's a Seiichi thing. So, ARG, is there anything else in the spoiler zone that you want to talk about? There is a lot of stuff we didn't talk about, a lot of like moments and stuff. Yeah. But we kind of hit like the big things, and the stuff that I thought was kind of sketch and maybe problematic, I kind of mentioned along the way. So that's really just the really main big stuff. But is there anything else you think I missed? I
think we hit the really important moments throughout the series. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover and a lot more disturbing things. Like, for example, like Fukishi and Seiichi like running through a field, like hiding from Seiko together. Like kind of like they were running away, but then that backfired as well. But there's like a lot of different things like that, or different moments with the mom, specific glances throughout the series that really build the tension for all these different major events that we talked about. But generally, I think we covered like the major moments, and I think we're ready to move on past the spoiler zone and into some just kind of like general points that we want to make about the series that's kind of relevant to anybody getting into it.
We're back. We're back with spoilers. So, boy, that was crazy, wasn't it?
Wild ride.
Oh, that was some stuff. So, we're no longer talking about spoilers, and we're just kind of going to wrap up the series and talk about a couple other things. One thing I want to talk about was Blood on the Tracks, which is the title of the series. The Japanese title is Chi no Wadachi, and originally I saw it translated as Trails of Blood, which I think is a better title than Blood on the Tracks.
It makes a lot more sense. There's not like... being on the tracks kind of reminds me like of a railroad track or like a train track. There's not a single train in this series that I remember.
Yeah, and I mean, it does make sense. It is essentially the same phrase, but I agree. Yeah. Tracks makes me think of trains, And trail is just a lot more neutral. It could be a road, it could be a walking trail, it could be anything.
Trail makes it sound more like you're following a mystery or some sort of path.
Yeah, and I think that fits pretty well because you might not be able to tell from the covers, but the covers are all actually photographs. This is actually Murder Mommy when she was in high school. You see here when she was younger. So if you look at the covers, it all kind of just feels like photographs of this family that was really messed up, and this is the blood that they've tracked along the way.
Yeah, this is their family album across the covers. So, like the first one here, it's got Seiko and baby Seiichi, and then it moves on with like the second volume. He's a little bit older, but still just the two of them. And then the third one, even older, and then the fourth one, he's like significantly older.
This is also an exercise of you picking out.
Absolutely. But so, yeah, I mean, like, it is a family scrapbook throughout the years, but then also it kind of it's like a fake portrait. Like, this is, look at our happy family, but psych, it's not actually a happy family. Like, you can turn over any of these, like, here's Seiichi with a cat. Oh, is that the cat that died? Yeah. Maybe.
It's interesting covers. And yeah, I just think that Blood on the Trail is far more neutral.
Yeah.
Or Trail of Blood is far more neutral, and it makes more sense. But you know, obviously we're not involved in like the localization of this book, so they made a choice for whatever reason they did, and it means the same thing. Like I said originally, it's okay name. It's just one of those interesting, puzzling. Ooh, kitty.
But yeah, I mean to kind of like wrap up the thoughts, like I said in the beginning of this video, I think it's really important that for reading series like this to step outside your comfort zone. Of course, we all love like a good shonen battle manga or some like harem shoujo books or whatever, but the big thing is that stories like this that make you step out of your comfort zone of what you like, what you enjoy, it gives you a wider depth into the different things that are out there in our world, whether they're sinister and fucked up like this, or just really understanding trauma that you might not have experienced. Now, granted, if you have experienced this kind of trauma that we trigger warning at the beginning, do not read this. It will set you off. Yes. I don't recommend it.
Yes, and I don't think this is the kind of thing that will bring you any healing.
No. This is not a therapeutic series.
No.
But for people that haven't experienced that or have it, or at least like comfortable to a point with that with themselves, this is an important idea to focus on.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else you want to say, Darfox, about this series that you have brought to my desk?
No, I think out with the old, in with the new. We're done talking about Blood on the Tracks, and now we're finally here. Oh, snap. To the big important part of the video, the kitty.
The kitty is an important part. Leave.
Does she jump up?
Right now she will. Leave.
Oh, kitty. No, do not push it up. That was a close one, kitty.
That was so close. Okay, I regret that decision.
I do not.
So now it's a segment of What's in the Box?
What is in the box? So you have your...
Got my little package knife.
It looks like a cheese knife.
Leave!
Kitty, come here. Come here. Oh, Kitty, why is Kitty so
loud?
Who's Kitty? Oh, Kitty doing the headbutts. Kitty.
If we ignore her, she'll quiet. Okay, it's time for the box. I suck at doing this. We're gonna figure it out. What is the tape?
Again, this is a preview to one of the next videos we'll do. Maybe the next video, it depends.
Maybe the next video, oh god. What am I getting into here? Okay. Is this like wrapped inside the box, or is there like...
I don't know.
I'm gonna see immediately?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't opened this box.
You didn't retape it. This is a weird box to begin with because it's like flapped over.
Yes, it's like a bigger box than it meant to. They cut it to refold it.
Oh my gosh.
I hope there's no price or anything in there. Hey, looks like a good packaging job.
Okay. What's in the box? More boxes!
More boxes. It is technically 2 separate things.
Oh my gosh. It goes with my shirt.
It does, yes.
Are these coasters?
Those are coasters, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Are they all different or are they the same?
I think they're different.
Oh my gosh. We gotta find out.
I think it's just 4.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know what I'm seeing, because clearly you can't, these are some Spy Family coasters, and I'm currently wearing a Spy Family shirt. So, let's see what we got in here. Oh my gosh, get out the box. I'm gonna rip this box here.
You ripped the box!
After
so much time I spent.
Okay, they are different. Okay, so the first one has got everybody in spy mode here, just chilling. Okay, and then we've got Bond joining the family, his little Borf, so cute. And then we've got this awesome moment from the first episode and first volume of the series where Lloyd is proposing to Yor, proposing to Yor, and amidst a bunch of explosions. And then we've got Anya delivering a punch. I'm assuming to Damien's face. That's super cute and super awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's still something else, and
there's another box inside the big box.
Let's just say maybe it matches.
Well, it says Spy Family pint glass set, so I'm guessing that's what it is.
Cheated.
I cheated. All right.
So if you've gone to the Shonen Jump merchandise store, you will recognize this stuff. I don't know if Amber knew about the store, and I kind of hate that she knows about it now.
No, I knew about it. I just didn't order anything from it because I spend too much money on other things.
Well, they do what do you call it, like drops basically. Like, they don't restock. They don't restock. So like
it's there for a limited time and it's gone.
So that's why I bought this up instantly, even though it's past Christmas and it isn't quite her birthday, but it's pretty cool.
That's so cool. Okay, so this one, they are both different. This one has the scene from the first coaster here on this side. And then the other side is kind of just like a family portrait and their names and kind of like a non-legible or it's legible. Just kind of like summaries of what each of the characters are.
And that must have been taken from the manga page, but like printed on the
like
cup.
Small,
it's small enough that the
But
definition it's cool.
It's like they're cool.
Can I feel the texture? Okay,
yeah, it does. It's definitely a hand wash only kind of thing. And then the other one is very Anya centric, and so it's got some different manga panels. Her little face going so exciting, and then like I even care, heh, and another heh, like with the kind of like pinched eyes that she does.
Yes, the Anya face.
Yeah. And then like a okie dokie.
So that's the full Anya cup then.
Now I kind of wish I would have been wearing my other Spy Family shirt for this video.
Nah, it's good.
Because this one's so Anya centric. The other Spy Family shirt I have has like 5 different faces that Anya makes on it. And then it says, I love peanuts, I hate carrots. And it's just like so delightfully Anya. I love it.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about in this video before we end it?
No, I just want to say that I actually am not caught up on Spy Family, so I'm going to read the manga, and then we're going to record a video on it. Cause it's
sweet.
I read the beginning. I already know I like it. It's just I haven't really caught up on it. I've seen some clips from the anime, so I know the Damien kid. I know his whole deal. But besides that...
Cat wants the box.
Okay.
I super appreciate these. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is the cutest coaster.
I hope you get use out of it.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could just put it on the shelf as a collector's thing, but I mean, I think these should be used, right?
I have a lot of use for coasters.
Yeah. It's nice. It's like acrylic.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, this has been Blood on the Tracks with Darfox and ARG Bombshell.
That's right. and tune in for our next video. Eventually, we'll do Spy Family, but we have a couple other things in the queue as well. So thank you for watching, and you have a nice day.
She'll squirm and stuff. She won't like bite you or claw you though. Oh, you're recording this?
Yeah, we're recording.
Hi, Leaf.
Are you a kitty or are you a kitty?
No? Okay, chair. No.
Let's bring it in.